All right, well, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Doing great.
This is such a beautiful day to be here, right?
Yeah.
This is awesome. It was a great drive here from Baltimore, Maryland, right? 495, 95. There's some great times to be on the road. Good morning. How you doing? All right, great. My name is Mike Allen, and I am a consultant with your EAP benefit, ACI specialty benefits. And this morning we will be talking about personalities within the workplace. So as we all know, that there are several different types of personalities within the workplace. And one thing you cannot control is who you work with and who you live next to in your neighborhood, right? You can't control that. So some of the personalities, it may clash, but one of the purposes of this training this morning is so that you all will just know that how to work with those different personality types, and then we're going to talk about and learn about our individual work styles, right? You're going to learn when you leave here, you'll know about your own individual work style. So that's really exciting, right? So at the end of the day, we have to be able to work with one another, because if we don't work well with each other, the resident loses out, right? That's the person who's going to be at the end result from how we work together, or how good we work together, or how good we don't work together. So the training summary is today, certain people are more difficult to understand and work with effectively than others, right? Am I right? So some folks, you know that anytime you need to do a task in the workplace, you know who's your go-to person, who you don't constantly have your back 110% of the time. And then there's some other people, you know, that when you try to get some assistance from them, it's going to be a little tug of war, right? You're going to be pulling teeth to try to get them to do something that's within their job description, right? And that could be definitely difficult. So again, this training is going to focus on how to identify the basic coping and confrontation methods to deal with people that can be a little bit difficult. All right, so the goals of the training today is we're going to examine the results of your personal styles and your profiles. Like I said earlier, identify your individual personality styles, recognize and appreciate characteristics in each style, because there's 4 different characteristic styles that we'll talk about, and we'll talk about how each one of them are unique and how you can integrate them and work and have them have the best end result as well. And feel comfortable with your own style and develop the versatility to adapt and improve, okay? So first we're going to review those types of behaviors, and then we're going to look at the style. Does that make sense? Okay, great. All right, so the types, all right. So the first type right here is the hostile aggressive trio. Okay, so these are the Sherman tanks, the snipers, the exploders, right? These are folks who abuse that authority. They can be very abrupt when they're communicating with you. They can be the workplace bully. Okay, they can be someone who says, hey, this is my way, or the highway, right? It's take it or leave it. You know, you're going to have to deal with it. The next one is the sniper. It's a covert assault, innuendo, and it's just like a sniper who's in the window. It's a covert operation. You just walk in one day and you just get shot. Boom! You don't know where it came from. But that's the same type of behaviors that you have, or personality types that you have within the workplace. You know, you're doing your day-to-day operations, your day-to-day responsibility, yet someone is there that's inadvertently, you know, throwing daggers at you, maybe talking behind your back, doing some office gossip, but really throwing some negative vibes your way. And the last one is the exploders. These are individuals who have adult tantrums, right? They get upset, you know, different change in the workplace may happen. You may have new management, new folks in HR, new employees coming on board, policies may change, and they may be verbally disappointed with that, and they can say verbally how that makes them feel, and it can be negative. They can get belligerent with it as well. So, man, I really don't like this, and they can verbally say how upset they are with those changes. So how do we cope with these aggressive trios, okay? Stand up to them, but don't fight. You don't want to get in a situation where it becomes confrontational, right? But you do want to confront them, because you don't want to be bullied. You don't want to be placed in a situation where someone has you doing something that's out of your job description, but you're doing somebody else's job. Does that make sense? So those types of Sherman tank individuals can have that because of their aggressive manner. So own your own feelings and opinions. Know what you are willing to do and what you're not willing to do. and expect to feel rage, but control your behavior. Okay, I have a training called emotional intelligence, and they used to have a commercial about 10, 20 years ago. I'm dating myself, right? But it's like a deodorant commercial, and they said, "What? You never get a second time to make a first impression," and that's how it is with our emotional aspects and our emotional connections with our colleagues as well. The first time we meet them, you guys all came in and I said, "Hey, good morning, how you doing?" And I tried to look everybody in the eye, try to smile at everyone, try to make it a pleasant place, because the amount of energy that it takes to be negative with someone, it takes a lot of energy to be negative. But just to smile at someone, just to give them a head nod and say, "Wow, I'm with you. We're on the same level." You're creating the type of environment within the workplace where you want to be. So you have that power to create a really positive environment, right? But you also have that same power to create a negative environment as well. And folks who are negative within the workplace can be like an organization cancer, right? You can wake up in the morning on a Monday morning and not want to go to work, because you're going to have to work side by side with somebody that is negative, that's throwing daggers at you all day, and you really just need to find out how can you deal with it. So with those snipers, those individuals that are throwing daggers, how do you deal with them? How do you confront them? You smoke them out, same way you would do a sniper. So if they say something negative to you, you approach them on that. If they try to give you a deliverable that's not within the job description, and say, "Wow, that's really not in my job description. I would love to help you, but that's just something that I don't particularly do. This is what my role is with the organization." And sometimes you have to let people know, right? And again, it's not being confrontational, but you can paraphrase what they said to say, "So you're asking me to do X, Y, and Z, but I thought that someone within your role, that's what they do. And does that make sense? Is that right?" Just to get some clarity, right? Because folks will take advantage of you. Happened to me within the workplace, okay? I was working in the federal government as a consultant, came on board, the first week or two. Everyone kind of introduced themselves to me. I'm reading all of the policies and procedures because the book was about this thick. But then when I put my toes in the water and actually start doing the work, right, I needed the help of my colleagues so that I could be the best consultant that I needed to be. So some folks knew that I was new to the organization, so they would have me doing things for them, right, that I wasn't supposed to be doing. So I just wanted to be the best employee I possibly could be, not knowing that I was doing somebody else's job. And they took pleasure in that. And once I got in, about 3 months, 4 months in, they said, "Wow, well, she does that to all the new people that come in." Right? And I said, "Wow, this is baptism by fire." So that's how I learned. So with exploders, take what they're saying seriously. People who explode, it can be confrontational. It can be a threat. So don't even look at it as it being a joke. Take these folks very seriously, especially with all of the violence that's happening within the workplace. It's definitely something, these personalities and personality types, definitely something that we want to take seriously. Since 9/11, the workplace has been taking serious threats more serious, right? Because it's a reality. It's a reality that people can, bring guns and bombs to the workplace. It's a reality that, someone can get terminated from the organization and stay at home for 2 to 3 years, and they're working out and they're going to the gun range, preparing to come back to the organization to take you out or someone within your organization. So what is the contingency plan, and how do you work towards that? How do you work and approach those folks? So manufacture a break in the interaction if possible. So if someone is being very confrontational with you, like those examples that I gave, maybe you want to take a moment and say, "Excuse me, I just want to get a deep breath for a second. I'm going to take a little break and we'll come back." Give it a little bit of time, because they may be up here and you're down here. You don't want to feed into their negativity, right? Because we can be impulsive in our responses to those types of individuals. Does that make sense? All right, questions, comments before I go to the next person? All right, great. The complainers, there's always one, right? There's always one complainer in the organization. And you see all of these captions over this guy's head, and he looks like a complainer too. Those folks that say, I'm overworked. That's not my job. I'm too tired. I'm unappreciated. I can't do it today. Oh my God, another letter? Another email? It's just like nothing goes right. It's like they're totally complaining about everything. Those are the passive folks. They're helpless. It's like this learned helplessness as well. Okay, blaming other individuals. Nothing is ever right. Okay, easier to blame others. They try to triangulate different situations. So they play the role of the victim all the time. So it's somebody else's fault that they did not receive that promotion that they wanted to get, right? Without taking the responsibility to say, hey, I need to do X, Y, and Z to get this promotion. Does that make sense? Everybody's with me? Okay. All right, cool. All right, so they don't take the personal responsibility. So that's what those complainers are about. Coping methods with those complainers. Listen to let them get off their steam, right? Some people want to just get it off their chest, and they may have a closer relationship with you, and they may need to just let that steam off. So you can just listen to them while they let off that steam, right? Deal with your guilt. You may have some guilt as well because you may be a part of what they feel is the problem, right? Acknowledge their complaints and their feelings, but don't agree. Empathize, but don't sympathize with them. Okay, don't validate their role of them being a victim. Ask factual, problem-solving questions. How would you make the situation better? Right? They're complaining to you. You want to ask them, well, if you were the manager or if you were in HR, right, how would you make this situation better for the organization? Because it's easy to complain and whine about why the organization is in a negative place or why things didn't go your way, but being solution focused, that's when you really have to think critically and say, wow, this is what I want to bring to the table. If they just did this, and if they really have a great idea that can make the workplace better, that could make the task better, and they have a relationship with you and they're sharing this with you, you can say, hey, this is a great opportunity to talk to Aaron Krusling about this. This is a great opportunity to talk to your manager because I think this would save us a lot of time and this would increase our productivity. This could help the residents. This is a great idea. But those types of complainers, they're always used to talking to folks that they're comfortable with. They don't feel comfortable talking to management, talking to human resources. But they have great ideas, but they don't get them to the proper channels. Okay, make limiting responses. Example, you feel you weren't treated well this morning. So again, just paraphrasing the different statements that they say to get clarity, making sure that you're on the same level with them as well. Okay, any questions or comments about those complainers? Anybody ever worked with a complainer before?
Yeah.
Yeah? Anybody was a complainer before? Absolutely, me too, right? I would complain certain opportunities there. It's like, wow, but I had to learn to grow, and I had to take the personal responsibility for myself, right? Because when you meet with management and they want to tell you about some of your flaws, that could be a vulnerable seat, right? That could be a vulnerable place to be. And as employees, as human beings, we don't necessarily like to hear what is wrong with us, right? We don't want to hear people say, this is what's wrong. But it helps us grow. So I looked at that feedback and I accepted it. But then I said, wow, I need to utilize these different skills and suggestions and implement some feed forward, right? To say, okay, these are the things that are wrong, but I'm going to take this information and I'm going to take these suggestions and I'm going to implement them within my job description to be the best employee by doing this, right? Because it's measurable. Because even when you go on a job interview, they say, hey, tell me 3 strengths. You can run them off. Wow, I can communicate with people. They love me. I'm great, right? I'm great. I'm lovely. They all love me. When they say, well, tell me 3 negative things about yourself. I said, wow, I just can't think of anything negative about myself at all. So it's really hard to make those connections and look at yourself and dig deep into yourself and really pull out or extrapolate, some of those negative responses about yourself. The next style type rather is silent and unresponsive. So they clam up all the time. They can be very passive. They want to avoid conflict with someone else. They rather keep their opinion to themselves. They don't have a confidant at the workplace. Everything is like, hey, how you doing? They just are very docile, very quiet. They're easily closed down. They don't offer any opinions or ideas, so they can be very, very introverted. They don't have anything to contribute. They're just happy that they have a job, right? They're happy that they have a place to go to on a regular basis. They're glad they have benefits. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to get fired. How do you cope with these individuals? What are some coping methods with the silent and unresponsive individuals? Deal with your own need to fulfill the silence, because sometimes someone's silent, they could be doing their job, but because they're quiet, we want to hear something from them. So they may not be a problem to us or to the organization, but they may be a problem to us because they're not saying anything, and because we may be extroverted, right? We want to hear from them when that's just who they are, right? It's just a quiet person. All right. When you're talking to them, you can ask them open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions. So you don't want to ask so many yes or no questions if you're trying to get them to communicate about their respective roles. So use the friendly silent stare, right? Because the nonverbals, that emotional intelligence, what we say with our nonverbal communication, it speaks volumes. Right? It speaks volumes. So although folks aren't really talking this morning, I can read all your body language and I can understand, who's with me, who's not, who's thinking like, man, what I got to do with my patients when I get back. But it gives off all communication style. So using a friendly stare would also be, it's a keen way to communicate with them. So comment on the lack of response as a question like, what does it mean? You're not saying anything right now. Like, what does this mean? Because I know that your role, you're going to be affected by these new policies. Do you have an opinion on this? Just asking them straight up, okay? In the interaction yourself, don't let it dribble away. All right, the next one is the negativist. All right, these are the no people. These are the glasses half full people, right? This is they reject ideas and new suggestions quickly. They can become very inflexible. They don't want to flex at all. They don't want to change. They're just negative. They're resistant to change. And when I do these trainings, sometimes when I'm doing them for 6 hours, and I have all of these activities, and it's about 30 people or more, I'll break them up into groups, right? And say, hey, count off from 1 to 3. All the 1s get in this corner, the 2's over here, and the 3's over here. Well, folks start hemming and hawing because they don't want to get up and change their seat, right? Because they sat in this seat. They've only been there for 15 minutes by now, and they feel real comfortable with this seat. Like, this is my seat. So some folks get real negative about just something, a change as simple as changing your seat to do an activity for 10 minutes to return back to your seat, but folks can be very negative with it. So how do we cope with the negativeness, okay? Watch for your own sympathetic depression. Make optimistic but realistic statements. Okay, so try to encourage positivity. Sometimes it's okay to be positive, right? This is a great day to be negative out here, right? Am I right? I was just driving on 95. It was totally rainy. People cutting in front of me. They didn't put their signals on. There's a bunch of 18-wheeler trucks that just splashed right over my car, and I had to put my windshield wipers on. I was running late here, but I'm here, right? And I made it safe, and I'm here so I can be real positive with you guys. Do this training, smile, say good morning, how you doing? And it's all right, right? Being positive because you want that positivity to be contagious. So you definitely want to infuse some sort of positivity vibe with these individuals that have a negative standpoint or negative realization, like their whole life is just negative, right? Stay away from solution steps for as long as possible. Don't try to convince them that things are not so bad, because for them it may be bad, but just let them know, you have to have put on a happy face as well. Because again, if we know that our colleagues are being negative, guess who else knows?
Everybody.
And who else? Who's a part of everybody? Who do you serve? Your residents, exactly. So the residents are here, right? So the residents know that, wow, man, I don't want to work with this person. This transporter's coming over here. man, this person is always negative. They don't even communicate with me. They slam me in the wheelchair and push me down the aisle, right? I don't want to talk to this social worker. I don't want to talk to this nurse. I don't want to talk to this specialist, right? So the negativist. Folks ever work with somebody that's a negativist? By show of hands? Yeah, absolutely. Anybody been a negativist in here before? All right. And I think we all have these styles depending on where we were within the workplace. And I think the culture of where we go of the organization, it contributes, right? Because you can just step into some place and really be happy, but everybody can be so negative, and it's like the vibe is, wow, you can't beat them, so you might as well just join them. Like, yeah, management is horrible in here. Like, you know, I'm not getting a raise in here. Like, these offices are too small, and you just started really feeding into it. It's a groupthink mentality, but it's the culture of the organization.
That's true.
What'd you say, sir?
I see some people are really like that. They really don't mean it. They didn't even know it's a problem until they see their colleagues making it a big deal.
Exactly.
They say, if I don't say what they are saying, are they going to think that I'm timid or I'm scared?
Right.
Hey, the money is, we need more money.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was just like, I had a job like that. I was positive. I said, hey, I'm coming in here. I'm going to be like, anybody like baseball in here? 1, 2 people? Yeah, I was coming in like I was the relief pitcher, right? I was going to come in and save the day. I'm going to strike everybody out. I'm going to do this great thing. I'm going to really change this culture of the organization. But as I got to know about that organization, what I found was people were employed there for 10, 20, 30 years. So they were used to things going, okay, you want to order some pens for your office? Guess what? It's going to take about 6 months for you to get these pens. So everything works slow. So you need to get on board. So after a while, it was just that they just lulled me into being negative. And I was like, wow, I used to go home and be totally negative. My wife says, hey, Mike, what's wrong with you? You just seem different. So she saw a difference within my behavior because it goes from the workplace to home. Right, because sometimes you spend more time here at the workplace than you do at home. So it can totally transcend and change the type of person that you become. Okay, so the next one is the know-it-alls. Okay, those are the bulldozers, the experts. Little room for others' inputs or ideas. They're stubborn. They fault with those incompetence. Right, these are individuals who have been with the organization for years. Right, they have been more seasons. They are part of building the fabric of that culture, but they know everything, and you can't tell them anything. So even if you came from another organization to this organization to help improve this organization, you know, that know-it-all person is going to say, well, it's not going to work, it's going to be my way, right? And this is how it's going to go. And you're talking to them about what your suggestions are going to be, and they totally talk over you and say, wow, okay, that sounds great, but this is what we're going to do, right? And they're just dictating to you how it's going to go down, okay? So real experts, do your homework, okay? Ask existential questions. How would that work? Okay, because folks are going to tell you all of these bright ideas, but they may not even have a strategic plan to tell you how is it going to work, right? So if you ask them specific questions, they say, hey, what's the SWOT analysis on that? You know, what are the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats for our organization if we implement these ideas, right? Because you want to have them think critically and not just thinking what sounds good, you know, in their brain, okay? So make factual but not dogmatic statements and be just concrete. So phony experts, they state correct facts. Okay, so communication, interaction is better to do it one-on-one versus doing it in front of a group, right? Because the know-it-alls, they like to have an audience, right? So if you talk to somebody that's on one-on-one, then they may be more inclined to listen to your ideas. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that when they get around the group that they're not going to take credit for your ideas, right? But they're going to listen to you as well, okay? So cope with this person when he or she is alone, whenever possible. So diversity within the workplace. Okay, I put together a nice little cycle right here of all of the little different types of diversities that we have. So on top of the personality types I just mentioned, then you throw in these layers of diversity, right? So you can have employees here that have some physical disabilities, some mental disabilities, but you're still employees here. You can have race, ethnicity, right? Black, white, African, Latino, you know, Mexican, Middle Eastern. You can have folks from those backgrounds. Culture, right? You can be from a different tribe and, you know, different cultures. genders, male, females, right? Your job title, the nurses, the social workers, the transporters, the administrators, right? You have the multidisciplinary team approach here. You have age, right? You have the traditionalists, the baby boomers, the Generation Xers, the Generation Ys, like those guys who came to my last training when we talked about that. You have those variables. Then you have sexual orientation as well. So you have lesbian, bisexual, gay, and heterosexuals. You have this whole hodgepodge of diversity here on top of those personality types. So it can be totally different, so different to really get to the bottom of who's who, right? And really, it starts with knowing yourself. Because once you know yourself, then you can start dissecting in terms of how can you work with somebody else and what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses and what are their contributions to the organization, and how can you use somebody else's strength to compensate for somebody else's weakness with this and reason to create a win-win situation for yourself and for the organization. But the person that's in between all of this, again, is the resident, okay? Is that resident. So now we're going to do an exercise, right? It's in there. It's in your, it's the personality style inventory exercise. So what I need you guys to do is, in the space provided next to each one, I need you to, I'll just read this, describe, this is describing you at work. This is your work personality only, okay? Work from left to right and assign 4 points to the most characteristic behavior. That's most fitting for your characteristic behavior. 3 to the next most characteristic behavior, then 2, and then finally 1 to the least most characteristic behavior. And then you want to add up each column, okay? Take each column and total that up. Okay, so total each one separately. So I'll give you about 8 minutes to do that. Okay. Anybody needs a pen? Okay. Yeah, 8 minutes, 2 minutes for each section. What's your style?
When you say directing, what do you mean?
Directing, like directing people, giving them directives.
Okay.
Cautious.
I'm sorry?
Cautious. What do you mean here by cautious?
Cautious. Just being cautious in terms of having some reservations before you do some things because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. Remember, this is your workplace self. Just put a number next to each one of these lines.
Okay.
Just rate yourself from 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. I'll walk around. That's it. Right. Put a number right here. 4, 3, 2. Yes. Go down, and then you're gonna add it up in the section. Okay.
Those numbers here, right? 1.
Well, just like I said, 4.
No zero.
Yeah, no 0. 4 is for the most characteristic behavior for you, right? So the most common behavior, right? So if you're always directing people, you know, for this one, you'll give yourself a 4. If you're not someone who directs others, you'll put a 1 there. Does that make sense? Okay. Got it. Just keep going down and add it up. Don't be afraid to take your cell phones out and add them up. I do it all the time, okay?
What is deliberate?
Deliberate? Just being deliberate with something, just being real blatant, like just telling them straight.
Speaking correctly things that you've done. Some people aspects of
Yeah.
Question.
in control.
Hi.
Yeah. Okay. It's all gonna make sense at the
Look at all this
end.
mess.
It's all gonna make sense at the end.
Look at all this mess.
Yeah.
I complainant.
You the complainer?
Not right now.
We got a complainer here, guys.
Right there.
Good. Nice dip. Are you gonna add them up? Yeah, you gotta put numbers here. So if you're an influencer.
Put number even on this one.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, all of those little
That's what I'm
signs
saying.
need
Who's
to be
gonna
numbered.
add them? That's what I was
I
asking
didn't
you.
know.
You
Okay.
guys, you know you're gonna do homework this morning, right?
Okay.
Trust me, it's all gonna make sense, okay?
All right.
It's all gonna make sense. I'm gonna put it all together for you. But you know your work stuff. I don't know your work stuff. Okay. So just look up if you're done with doing that, go to the next page and whatever your number is for D, you want to find that number and put a little dot on there, okay? Sort of like the example here. So you want to put a little dot. So if you got a 31 on D, you want to put it right between 32 and 30s. You want to put a dot there, and then when you want to put a dot in each section based on your number on that previous page, and then you want to connect the dots like a little graph. Okay. What is it? 27?
Question.
5, 10, 11, 13, 16, 17.
Okay, so after you do that, once you connect those dots, the highest peak, the highest one is going to be what you are. Okay, so for that example that's in the training, that's an S person because that S is the highest peak. Okay, you see? All right.
If you have a double the same team for SRC, you belong to the two.
Yeah,
You can have 24, 24 or 35, 35.
right.
So you belong to that.
Some people get that.
Uh-huh.
Some people get that. It all makes sense.
So what we do with this?
I'm going to tell you guys in a second. I want everybody to probably get it.
I have 3
Okay,
questions.
so
Oh,
okay.
Where's the map? Where you put it?
Yeah. 20,
so I'm guessing.
10, try to put these numbers up there arbitrary. D, I, S, C. Yeah. So you want to connect the dots, something like that, okay? So is everybody done?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to connect the dots. So you want to say the highest peak. Like this is, if this was mine, I would be I.
Excuse me, what's that number the last one?
I just put this. Don't even worry about that. I just was kind of throwing numbers up. Don't worry. I'm sorry.
Oh.
That's confusing. Okay. Sorry. So I would be an I. Okay. So we all have numbers. So I'm going to go around. So the D is a dominant style, and I is an influencing style. A C is a conscientious style, and the S is the steadiness style. So how many D's do we have here? By show of hands. No dominant folks here. That's a good thing, right? My wife is dominant. She bosses me around all the time. Any I's? No I's? Any C's? 1, 2, 3. Any S's? Everybody's S over here, huh? All steady. Wow. Okay, look at you guys. You're in the right place, right? So I'm going to go through each personality style, right? And then we're going to find out some more descriptions about ourselves, our work selves a little bit more, okay? So the D is the dominant style. So the D is they want immediate results and they act decisively, okay? They're determined and assertive in meeting their needs through the direction of others. So they get people to do what they want. So they're really good communicators. Results oriented. They get things done in a practical way. Ranges from being decisive to being defiant. Okay, can be viewed as overbearing, insensitive, and distrusting. Motivated by control through a direct style. Fears being taken advantage of by others and needs to be more accepting of others' limitations. Okay. So that's the D, but there's not too many D's in here, right? This is mine. I'm an I, okay? The influencing style. They want contact with people and act enthusiastically. Tends to be entertaining and motivated to interact with others. I guess that's why I'm standing up here, right? Ranges from being invigorating to impulsively indiscriminate. Motivated by personal approval from others through direct style, right? Fears loss of influence with others, persuasive, spontaneous, and open to others, can be overly subjective, extremely emotional, and superficial, needs to be more objective, analytical, and organized, like D. Now, the S, for most of you guys in the room, right? S, wants stability and act systematically. Okay, approaches situations in a slower, more planned manner, ranges from a service tendency to a stern, passive resistance response, motivated by personal stability through an indirect style, fears loss of stability, deliberate, objective, and consistent, can be overly systematic, indecisive, and not express themselves, needs to develop greater comfort with change and be more assertive. Okay, so that's the style of an S. Right. The last one is C, because I do think we had a C in here. Right. Somebody was a C. All right, one C. All right, the C's wants accuracy and acts cautiously, precise, reserved, and concerned with the appearance of conditions. Right, how things look. Approach is to drive compliance, ranges from being contemplative to being critical, motivated by achieving goals through an indirect style, fears criticism of their efforts or actions by others, and creative, inquisitive, and discreet, and can be viewed as a perfectionist even, okay? Needs to develop further acceptance of realistic limitations and imperfections. All right, so is that accurate for you guys? Like, do you feel that any of those characteristics for that personality work style is not you? Or do you kind of say, wow, this is me? Does it make sense? Yes, no?
Makes sense.
Makes sense? Okay.
95%.
Okay, all right, good. So if we understand ourselves, we can begin to understand others. So one thing about this particular exercise, right, you know your work style. So if you are an I, like myself, you know that you're a people person, that you can be, you know, that I can influence people as well. So you guys being most of you guys were C's, your cautious style. So you want that accuracy and you think cautiously about how you're going to interact with people. The goal of this is to not only know yourself, but know other folks' characteristics and how do you engage with those individuals, right? So if you know that what is going to be the best way to communicate with me? Like, how are you going to connect with me to get the job done when we're working together in the workplace? So, you know your own style and what your own, well, I don't know if it's a strength, but really what your own characteristic is. And then you use that to work with others. Does that make sense to folks? Okay. So you're probably going to have to look this over again and keep this on your desk. So every style can be more versatile. So if you are a D, it says to listen. Remember you're fast, firm, and confident. So Ds need to listen. If you are an I, refrain. You're impulsive, right? I'm very impulsive. And I know this. So a lot of times I have to think before I say some things because once I put it out there, I can't take it back. Okay? If you are an S, which is most of you guys in this room, it says the recommendation is to decide, okay? Because your cautious decision-making approach may stress other personality types, right? Because you're being so cautious, like the other personality types is like, wow, I want you to make a decision, right? Because you're contemplating on what's the best way because you're like people pleasers. You want to please everyone, but you have to make that decision. So if you are a C, you have to take that risk, okay? You're cautious. Systematic nature can prevent you from achieving your goals. So you have to get out of your comfort zone. Okay? All right. So the next one, don't put people in boxes. So they're not always, so now we know that we're a D, we're an I, we're an S, we're a C. Now you know other people is like an S or a C within this room. And you know that I'm an I, right? So, but we don't want to put people in boxes because that is your work self. But you know, when folks get out of that characteristic style is when there is stress. So when there's a stress level happens, I don't know, God forbid, you know, an explosion happens, like something in Boston, like right up the block. It's like how we react to it is going to be different from our personalities style on this, you know, in this presentation right here, okay? So how do I use it? Use your information on a person's social style constructively. So know that personal style is just one way to know and understand a person, okay? If you are not going to use the information to form a better relationship, then don't use it at all. Okay, so, you know, sometimes I do these trainings and folks say, wow, they're a D, so they're dominant, and, you know, kind of joke on folks. But if you don't use it strategically as a way to communicate with each other, then it's not going to work. Okay, so don't use it if you're not going to implement it in the everyday. So steps in dealing with difficult people, right? Request to talk to a person if they seem difficult. You know, request to have that one-on-one. Explain why you have asked the meeting in the first place. Use I statements because if you say a you statement, if I say, George, you did such and such, what am I doing to George?
You are imposing, I don't know.
I'm accusing him, right? I'm putting him in a defensive mode, right? Right, it's like he did something wrong, right? So this is how we use words, so the power of language. So ask for his or her view of the problem. Say, hey, you know, this is what's going on. How do you feel about it? You know, to get their perspective on it without assuming things. So make a request for change in a person's behavior. I said, wow, you really come to work, you kind of seem upset or whatever the case may be, and say, wow, can you kind of change this in order to get the job done, right? It's just asking. They can say no, right? And if you ask them, you can let it fester within your mind. Ask for feedback as well. Again, it's a vulnerable situation, but you want to place yourself in a vulnerable situation and say, what do they want from me? Because the worst thing is to be in the workplace and not know what your colleagues or management wants from you, right? You just kind of going by the seat of your pants, all right? Empathize the benefits of change. emphasize the benefits of change, get agreement, and set specific target dates for the follow-up. Right? Set some specific dates to provide some ongoing feedback, or what I like to call feed forward as well. But if you are working with individuals that are in a different personality type that we talked about, or a different personality style, and it makes it so difficult for you to work with them or engage with them and make sure your job difficult, then you have an EAP benefit that's there to help you, right? It's absolutely free and absolutely confidential, because it can be hard to work with other individuals that are from different personality types and personality styles. And sometimes you don't have the ability to make that connection with them, and it can be frustrating as well. But you have an employee benefit that you and your household members could take absolute access of and talk to a clinician about how to handle that stress. So maybe you need to work out, maybe you need to they maybe give you some tools in terms of how you can connect with that individual as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned about your own personality type and or style here. And please use this as a point of reference, especially when you're in some critical situations at the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.